Welcome to ProServeIT Academy. We'll get started now. This is our third cybersecurity class, Ransomware as a Service, How to Protect Your Organization. With today's complex and constantly evolving cyber threats, but only by treating every action as a threat can keep your environment secure. My name is Catherine Kwan, and I'm on the marketing team at ProServeIT. Presenting today will be Simi Oyedeji, security consultant at ProServeIT. It's our pleasure to host you today. Before we launch into today's class, I'd just like to mention a few items before we dive into the great content Simi has put together. To minimize background noise, I would ask that you please keep yourself on mute during the presentation unless you would like to ask a question. You can also enter any questions in the chat and we'll answer your question during a pause or during our Q&A time. We are recording the presentation and you will all receive a copy along with the deck for your reference, so look out for an email within the next day. And during the session, if you experience any audio or visual issues, we suggest you drop from the session and join again. With that, I'll turn it over to Simi to start today's class.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Good afternoon, everyone, and you're welcome to today's session. I will be looking at the ransomware as a service and how to protect your organization. My name is Simi Oyedeji. I'm senior consultant here at ProServeIT. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for almost 11 years now. And the agenda for today's session, we're going to be looking at the malware overview, what a ransomware is, as well as the ransomware as a service ecosystem or the industry, so to say. And we'll be looking at a case study to give us like a simulation or a demonstration of how this ransomware as a service happen in the cyberspace. Then we'll be looking at the impact of the ransomware as a service, as well as how you can protect your organization, which is the safeguards. And if you have any question, feel free to drop them in the chat box and we'll address that towards the end of this slide. Okay, so looking at the malware overview, ransomware as it is a type of malware as well, but in order for us to better understand what a ransomware is, we're going to go back to its origin, which is making us understand what a malware is in its sense. Malware generally is a malicious program or code with the intent to cause harm into a system. And there are various types of malware. We have virus, we have worms, Trojan horse, spyware, and ransomware. Virus is possibly one of the most common type of malware. You know, a virus attaches itself to a malicious code and then use that to cause and harm on a system or program. You know, just like biologically, say virus, you know, they can spread quickly and cause damage to an individual. The same thing with a system. If a virus gets onto a system, it can cause damage to the core of that operating system, corrupt files, and even possibly lock out the user as well of the system. Worm, in its sense, is another kind of malware, which it's a level higher than virus in terms of the kind of harm and how fast it propagates in the network. So it also gets itself from the infected system, and from there it starts to, you know, find its way around the network. So aside worm compromising a single system, once you get on the network of a system, it passes through any form of connection, maybe through a share or through a network connection on that system to spread itself across the network to another operating system or to a server within that network. So unlike the virus that could probably just compromise one single system, worm gets into the system and spreads across the network to infect more systems generally. Then Trojan horse, you know, which was gotten from the Greek soldier back in the days, whereby, you know, they stuffed themselves inside a Trojan horse and presented it as a gift. And over the night, all the soldiers came out of the Trojan and then conquered their enemy. So that's the same thing with this malware. It's appeared to be a legitimate software. For example, it could appear to be maybe a Windows media player program or a remote agent like AnyDex or even Putty. And once you download such program, because it's going to appear just like a legitimate program, however, it's malicious. Once you download it and run it on the system, then it causes harm on the system. It even goes further to create backdoor. Backdoor is a form of creating another way of entrance. Should in case you clear the system or you delete this Trojan horse, it will have created another way of entering into the network, which is called the backdoor. So basically, that's just giving the attacker or a cyber criminal or the hacker a way to get access into the network. Even though you've taken care of the Trojan horse, it will have dropped and created a backdoor entrance um, for the cyber criminal or the hacker. And basically, they have different variants of this Trojan horse as well. There's a remote access Trojan horse, which is also very dangerous because it enables the intruder or the hacker to gain remote access into your operating system or into your infrastructure. Spyware is also one of common malware, and it hides itself in the background of a computer system, whereby it tries to just spy for sensitive information like your credit card details. Sometimes some of them plug themselves on a browser. So anytime you go to your online banking or you try to purchase anything on Amazon or any online merchant site, it's just use and the browser is already compromised with a spyware. Any sensitive information like your credit card details is going to harvest it and transmit it over the internet to the cyber criminal. Then ransomware, which is the main focus of today's session. It's also a family of malware, and it comes with an heavy price because if a ransomware affects an infrastructure or system, it's very instant. And because it's very instant, it encrypts the data of the system or the whole system as a whole, and you'll be able to get access into that system except you pay the ransom that has been set by the cyber criminal or the hacker. So having understood the malware overview or the malware ecosystem, this is just the most common type of malware. I'm sure the next thing is how does this malware get onto people's system or get into our system or into our organization's network? Of course, there are so many ways, but we'll be looking at a couple of them. And the most common one is through as simple as through a USB drive. We can start with maybe a personal system. If you use a USB drive that has already been compromised with a virus or malware. And if you have a very strong anti-malware solution on your system and you plug such USB drive, it will automatically get compromised by such virus or worms or Trojan, whatever that's on the flash drive. Um, Another way is downloading programs from illegal sites or from compromised websites. Sometimes when you download this program, they also have malware that are attached to them. And if you run such program on your system, the same thing would happen to your system. It makes it vulnerable. And also, there's so many ways you can be tricked from even a pop-up when you're browsing, there could be a pop-up ad that says, oh, your Adobe Acrobat PDF reader is out of date. Click here to update it. And if you click that, and then it can also download the malware onto the system and so many other ways. But the most prevalent way that ransomware, which is our focus, has gotten access into most enterprise as well as most individual system is through phishing. And phishing, of course, it crafts itself into an email attachment and is sent to a user. And once the user clicks that attachment, the system gets compromised. So let's quickly dive into understanding what phishing is because it's a clever way of attack by cyber criminal. And of course, it's going to convince the user to gain access to grant access to the cyber criminal because it's going to appear to the user as a legitimate email. However, it is an unsolicited email with the intent to send sensitive information to the hacker or to compromise the system. And it's so prevalent nowadays because phishing is very manipulative. It manipulates users to divulge sensitive information, and it's mostly done over email. And basically, it also attaches itself to malware. And the way it appears is as simple as everything we see every day, just the same way we access our emails every day, we respond to emails. This, because of it's a daily routine, oftentimes some of these emails comes as as a malicious email, which is a phishing email. And if care is not taken and you click on the link or you are hastening to open the attachment, which has a ransomware, when such happen, it automatically compromises the system. So like I mentioned, phishing is just like a regular email, just like we see a FedEx box every day, but within the FedEx logo in itself, there's an hidden message, there's an arrow pointing to show how, they always ensure to give a delivery of your whatever you're trying to courier through them. And of course, we also know this logo, right? This is a Toyota logo, but in itself, it also has a message, which is the logo in itself independently spells out the word Toyota. So just as simple as what we see every day with an hidden agenda or with an hidden meaning, just like this logos or this signs that I showed us. The same thing with a phishing email. It appears just as a legitimate email. And if care is not taken and we just click on such emails or click on the link in those emails, it could compromise the system as well as our network or as an organization. So phishing in itself has become one of the most prevalent means of spreading malware, spreading ransomware, stealing and stealing sensitive information from the enterprise. As you can see here, over 81% of hackers that is related to breaches were caused through phishing. 66% of malwares, were installed through malicious email. 62% of breaches, were done through phishing, and 51 includes malware, someone installing unauthorized software into the system. But phishing has become one of the most prevalent, which is 91% of the most cyber attack that's happened over the years. Because it takes one to be very patient to review such email to be able to know that this is not a legitimate email. But one of the common way we advise people, whenever you receive an email that comes with what we call FUD, fraud, it's called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When you receive an email and it scares you or it gives you a sense of urgency to want to click on the link or want to open the attachment, or whenever you see a mail that you're in doubt of, those emails could potentially be a phishing email. So FUD, that's fraud, stands for fear, urgency, and doubt, or fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Whenever you have such, having reviewing an email, there is a likelihood that such email is a phishing email. So take a step back and carefully review the email. If you're not sure, you can ask your colleague, you can ask your supervisor, or even IT in general to confirm if this email is valid. For example, you get an email with IT telling you that they've been seeing a lot of traffic coming from your network that is causing a network downtime in the enterprise, that everyone is affected because of the traffic coming on your network, that will need you to click on this link so that we can get access to fix the issue from your system because you're working from home, and you kind of like curious, like, oh, what could have gone wrong? But you needed IT to get access into your system to be able to, and you just click on the link and all of a sudden the system just gets, encrypted and you're being hacked to pay a ransom. It's as simple as that. Just a quick action of clicking on the link or opening an attachment, a ransomware is dropped on the system. So going further, to make us further understand what a ransomware is. Ransomware, like I mentioned, is a type of malware that spread through the network and access resources where possible. And the main intention of the ransomware is to encrypt your data and therefore locking you out of that system. And then before you can access the data, you are being told to pay a ransom. And how our encryption works is very, so I'm going to just make it very simple for us to understand. So it takes two keys to, in an ecosystem of an encryption. So there is a public key, which is a key that I can give to anybody to protect an information before sending it to me, right? But for me to be able to access that information, I have to keep a key called a private key. So I can give you a public key and say, before you can send this information to me, encrypt it. It's just like zipping a file, for example, and putting a password, just encrypt it with this public key and send it to me. So if anybody steals that information, they won't be able to access it, right? Because they don't have the private key. So once you send it to me, I will be able to open it with my private key and see the information. The same thing with this malware. So the malware is configured with a public key to encrypt the data that is found on the system. And once that data is encrypted, you will need a private key to access that data. Right. So in order to get that private key, you're being told to pay a ransom. So basically, that's how it works. It's just, we call it, another word for it could be digital kidnapping. So legitimately or illegitimately kidnapping your data on your network and requesting for a ransom to be paid for the key to be delivered back to you. And these ransoms are never cheap. They could go as high as over billions of dollars. That's how um, hurtful this malware and very dangerous it is. And this is just looking at it from a architectural point of view, whereby the attacker attached a ransomware to a phishing email, send it to the user clicks on it, the malware is unpacked, and then starts probing the system and start to encrypt the system, and then ask the public key from the hackers network to be able to encrypt the data. And then the system is locked, and all of a sudden you see a page asking you to pay a ransom. And once you pay the ransom, through Bitcoin, the attacker then releases the private key. And of course, sometimes they don't release the private key and they just get the money free of data or free, and then you you're still in the same state of not being able to access your data. So having fully understand that, what are the most top or what are the top industry that are affected by ransomware? So we have the finance. Finance is one of the top, and what this ransomware steals is confidential data like your customer data, credit card informations, your social security number, credentials as well. And of course, healthcare. Healthcare also, they attack healthcare and they steal personally identifiable information, medical records as well. Government, secret information, secret records. Education, they steal people's diploma to do identity theft and the likes. Manufacturing, they try and get access to the trade secret. These are just like touching points on some of the key things that most common data that ransomware often steal from the network. And we're going to get into that, how ransomware attacks steals off the network. Okay. And one of the very incident that happened, I think about a year ago, 2 years ago, was this incident that happened in Germany, whereby a ransomware, was initiated on a medical facility. In fact, this also I was so passionate about this incident because it was the very first time in the cybersecurity industry whereby a malware or a cyber attack has been the reason that led to the potential death of a human being. And what happened in this case was that the attacker was actually sending a ransom to a school, so a school in Germany, a university rather in Germany. But unfortunately, because the way the network in that university was structured, the medical facility of that university also got compromised. So the malware got into the university, spread itself, and then also got into the medical facility. So because that has happened, they couldn't get access to medical records of patients. Unfortunately, there was also an incident whereby there was an emergency. They were bringing somebody to the clinic, very urgent, for the person to be attended to. And, they couldn't attend to the person or the patient because they couldn't access our record. So they had to, suggest that the patient be taken to another hospital that was about 35 kilometers thereabout. But unfortunately, before they could get the patient to that next hospital, the patient had died. So it was kind of a major issue within the cybersecurity industry because this was very unfortunate. And yes, we've had situation whereby a facility get ransom, but never heard of it being a resulting to somebody's potential death, which is why this is a very major attack that needs to be dealt with critically so that we don't become a victim. So ransomware as a service, or as Microsoft would call it, human-operated ransom attack. The major difference between, or not really a difference because it's still a ransomware, but this is just making us understand that ransomware has gone beyond just the malware that is deployed. It is, the cyber criminals have potentially or actually created a network whereby they are very structured, just the same way you're structured in your different organization, whereby you have the MD, you have the vice president, you have different entity within your organization with different roles and responsibilities. The same thing with the cyber criminals. They have individuals that develop the ransomware. They have structures or different structure, people that steal emails of people to send the ransom to, people that distribute the ransomware, the person that would manage the authentication. So they've created such a cloud, a cyber criminal cloud, whereby they can render this ransomware service very much easy, such that anybody can subscribe to their service and then, make money off it. So how does this ransomware as a service work, basically? Like I mentioned, they're structured in such a way that someone develops a ransomware. An individual, either anybody can subscribe to them, pay, or even set up a contract whereby, okay, I want to get a ransom where with a ransom amount of say $50,000, for example. This is just at the minimum. And they will agree on the percentage that will come to the developer once the ransomware is paid in Bitcoin. So basically, you're just engaging yourself into, hiring a developer that specializes in developing ransomware. And this ransomware not just crafted anyhow, they are crafted to whichever entity that you're targeting. So if you're targeting like a financial industry, they craft the malware such a way that it steals, credit card information, payment information, user login, and user credentials to maybe the online banking and the like. So they craft that and then they produce it and share it, and then somebody does the deployment, and then once the systems are encrypted and they are paid, they share the money based on whatever percentage they've agreed, and then they move on. So it's basically that organized, and at the end of the day, the bone of contention is that once this malware gets on the system, it encrypts it and it also exfiltrates the data, which is to send the data or the compromised data to the cyber criminal, and they can do whatever they like with it. They can publish it, they can sell it to the highest bidder, they can sell it to your competitors. They can use it as well to maybe if they steal customer credit card, they can start using it for card not present transaction, buying stuff from different online platforms, and spend customers' money without their authorization. So like I mentioned, it comes with a heavy price and it locks down the network of the user and it asks for a ransom to be paid. So like I mentioned, this is the new norm, unfortunately, for the cyber criminals, because now there's no need going to the brick and mortars to say you want to rob a bank or rob uh, an institution or an individual with this ransomware, because it's now a ransomware as a service, which is now very prevalent. A lot of people with malicious intents are subscribing to them, and they're using them for their selfish or their intention to compromise an organization as well. So here is just a funny picture saying to the cyber criminal that keyboard is the new knives, meaning that the computer is the new weapon to make money as a criminal, rather than going to every brick and mortar to rob an institute or to rob an individual. Basically, it's just what this is saying. So we're going to watch a very short clip, which just summarizes or try to compress all I've said and give us a better picture. And it's also a very collaborative video. I would encourage us to pay attention and we can just have a bit of interaction or based on what we've found on this video. And I'm also going to just show us a bit of question and then we're going to talk about how this happened. So this is a video that talks about it's a demo video from Cisco about how ransomware can propagate and how the cyber criminals work and the same thing as ransomware service. So kindly watch this video and like I said, kindly pay attention to it as well. That video basically covers almost everything of the introduction and depth into ransomware, like I mentioned earlier. And we're just going to go through it so that we can better understand the video clip. Okay, so there was a fake domain that this cyber criminal created. Does anybody notice that or notice that? You can drop it on the chat if you remember what the fake site was. Oh, cool. Somebody's giving us a thumbs up. Yes, Qualcats. Awesome, awesome. This is great. I like that we're paying attention. And that's just what a phishing email looks like. It's as simple as cloning itself as a legitimate site or a legitimate email with something that is just a little bit different, right? As you can see, the criminal created a domain that looks similar to the actual the actual organization. You know, the organization one is Qualicat, which is an I before the C. So she created something similar to that with with hell instead of hi. And if you know the user, the person that clicked on the email barely even noticed, and also there was something else again. What type of malware was deployed? Of course, I'm sure we all know what it was, right? What type of malware was deployed on the network? Anyone? Perfect. No, it's a ransomware. It's a ransomware. And how was it deployed? Anyone? How was ransomware deployed? Through an email attachment, exactly. Through an email attachment of phishing email. So she created the domain so that she can send the phishing email, and she crafted the email such that it will appear that it's coming from the boss, the CEO. You know, we saw how she was able to get their company signature through the sales team, you know, because it's almost the same thing, the same format at which to send an email internally. So she just crafted the mail to look exactly like the MDs and send an attachment with what? FUD, an attachment of urgency. You know, I wanted to extend, you know, my appreciation to the team. So people were eager to see what the attachment was about. And all of a sudden, as they clicked it, the malware got into the system and started encrypting the network, right? Did we remember how much the ransom was? Anyone notice how much the criminal asked the organization to pay? All right, let me show you. The criminal asked for 100,000 USD to be paid in Bitcoin. And during this session, when this video was made, I think Bitcoin was still a bit lesser than, you know, the USD. Currently, right now, Bitcoin, 172.71 Bitcoin is a total of 2,850,000 USD at the current Bitcoin rates. You know, so that is how massive this. So it's a quick win for the criminal. They're making quick money because of the urgency. The organization want to pay the money immediately before so they can get back into servicing their customers. But there was more that the cyber criminal did even after they paid the ransom, right? What was done? Anyone noticed? Was the company safe after paying the ransom? Yeah. So the ransomware was crafted in such a way to steal the information of customers in the network. So no, they were not safe even after paying the ransom and they got the private key to decrypt their systems. The way the ransomware was crafted, it stole all the credit card information, as you can see them here. These are all test information. These are all test videos from Cisco. As you can see, the credit card information, the house address, email addresses of customers, the social security number, the full name of the customer. They stole all those information. And what did the criminal do at the end of the day? She sold it to the highest bidder. Probably just put it on the dark web and says, oh, we have the sensitive information of this customer charging at this rate, of this organization rather. And then all of a sudden, their competitor probably bought it and then released it on the internet. And because of that, the CEO had to step down because of the impact that had on the organization. Sensitive data is nothing to joke with. Customer data, because the customer has trusted this data in our hands as an entity to safeguard them. But when it's been exposed to the internet, it's not only that you're breaching the privacy policy or breaching the security standard, it also, the customer will lose their trust. And we're going to get to all the impact of ransomware as we proceed. So I talked about dark web, which is where these criminals actually still share or spread the sensitive information that they receive or they steal or that have been stolen in through ransomware or through enemies. And what is a deep dark web or deep web? Basically, as we have it right now, the internet as it is, we all can agree that internet has a huge number of information that it's endless. Or in fact, we could say that the internet has infinite information, like it's infinity. You can download the whole internet, let me put it out, because it has so much information. And there's nothing you're probably looking for online that you probably won't see. I mean, even if you search on Google of how to create a human being, I'm sure there will be some article somewhere talking about how that can be done. So there's so many information on the internet. Now, if I told you that those endless information that we have right now is just about 10% of the whole internet, excuse me, 9 or 10% of the whole internet. With such a massive information that are endless, such a network with a lot of social communication, social platforms, endless resources. We have organization leveraging on internet, on the cloud network. All of that since the internet began is just 90% of the capacity of the internet. Why isn't just 9% or 10%? Basically, because the other 90%, we call it the deep web, which is like, so let's look at it from the physical world, right? We all have, as we all walk during the day, we walk from home to our office and the likes, and we see a lot of human beings we see a lot of individuals, right? We all have that daily business that are legal and legitimate that we can all see people transacting. Just the same way we have what we call the underground business, like the underworld business that for you to gain access to that corporation, you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows another somebody to be able to connect you with that organization. You can't just see it on the internet. You can't just Google them and say you want to go for an underground, you want to have an underground business. Someone has to connect you to that underground business. It's not because why it's not legal, it is illegitimate and it's done in secret. The same thing with the internet. So the 90% is like the underground of the internet, whereby a lot of illicit activities happen. You can hire an assassin, you can buy dangerous weapon, you can buy dangerous drugs, you can buy people's passports, you can, this, think of all the worst thing that you shouldn't be able to use or gain access to. All that is available on the dark web, which is where the cyber criminals operate with this information that they steal, they spread it, they share it on the dark web. And, like I mentioned, username and passwords, credit card details, users' international passport information, so many things for identity theft and the like, they all operate there. So that was why I mentioned earlier that the cyber criminals built a cloud-based system where they not only render the criminal the malware services, they also render a network where they can transact those data that has been exfiltrated. So like the new norm also, it goes without saying that data is the new oil. Sometimes people say data is the new gold. Some say data is the new bacon, or data is the new drug, as the case may be. So basically what we're trying to say is that um, when a criminal get access to sensitive data, there's always individuals that want to pay for those sensitive information. Like I mentioned, credit card information. And it's so incredible how they value some of this stolen data. As you can see, this chart by Experian, and you can see the social security number is sold $1 per data. Some they sell online payment details for just $20 to $200, $5 to $100, because they have a huge volume of those data. And then, buyer's market, sometimes this prices goes beyond this value as well. So it's a massive network where, aside stealing the sensitive data, they also sell. Oh no, aside compromising the network, rather, they steal sensitive data. Those sensitive data are also being sent. They could be used, they could be sold, they could be, just exposed to the internet, causing harm to the organization. Which is why it's very important that we don't become a victim of ransomware attack. So who are the players, of course? Who are the common threat actors in the cyber attack or cyber criminal world? We have, for cyber criminals themselves, which are organized individuals or group uh, that uses technology for malicious intent or malicious activity. Competitors as well. A competitor can hire a cyber criminal against your network, to just bring you down or bring the organization down, as the case may be. And it could be home or abroad, you know activist. I'm sure we've heard some of these individuals on the news, the anonymous group and the likes. Basically, they believe they're fighting for a cause, right? And to promote their agenda as well. And of course, to probably speak for the voiceless, something like that. Some with good intent, some with mostly to just cause a disruption in the world, as the case may be. The nation state, this is the cyber warfare. You have, different a different country attack. So in fact, there is I will try and see if I can get that link on the chart. There's something we call the cyber attack map. You can check it out. It's free. When you click on it, you will be seeing different countries. So there's like a like pictography of what to just give you a visualization of what uh, it is if a country is attacking the other country. And you will see in the details of the kind of attack that is happening, not necessarily the uh, legally attacking themselves, but just shows that different cyber attack or cyber criminals are available all across the world, attacking different countries, some to just gain access to government information, some to just maybe find a way to bridge into the nuke system and just release a nuclear weapon to just cause disruption on the world, as the case may be. Then, of course, we have the fraudster that are just going after stealing credit card information of money or anything that would gain them access to people's finance and the likes. So this is just a very swift view of what that is. Trying to see if I can get the link on the chat. You can also visualize them by clicking on the link. This is just a site that shows you, the kind of attack that is happening across the world, um, across the globe as well. I'm trying also try and project it from, see if I can project it from here. so that we can just see what it looks like. It's all over the internet, so you can. So take, for example, this is showing you the top 3 attacked origin, which is US, Australia, the top 3 attack target, the top type of attack, intrusion, and you can see malware, 7.1 million malware attack is currently happening right now based on this data from Sonic Wall. Bitdefender also has theirs. You can see the different locations, the kind of attack that is happening, the spam infection. This is just, showing you that this is real, different malware, Microsoft data in their cyber intelligence and threat intelligence platform. It shows you the different malware keygen that, are very most top attack from um, from the current web. So this is just giving you a view of what it looks like, how different you can see US, even Canada is somewhere around there, different attacks. It's just giving a visual of what it looks like, and you can go further to check what is happening across different data. You can see the full data and the news here, what has been trending across the globe regarding malware. So this is just for us to just have a quick view of what it looks like. So that's just for us to just have a glimpse of what is happening currently across the globe, right? So if attack, should I pay based on what we've seen today, based on what we've understood of how ransomware attack works? Should I pay if I'm attacked? I'm sure that's like the next question in our mind. From a security professional perspective, yes, I'm going to tell you straight, you should not pay because it's two things will happen. In fact, what is mostly happening nowadays is yes, you can pay, but you don't get your data back. They don't give you the private key. So what? You have lost two ways, right? And even if you pay and they give you your key, the private key to decrypt your data, like we saw in the video, the data is already gone, right? They've compromised the network, they've stolen the data. So they can choose to do whatever they like with that data. But one major thing that happens when people pay ransom is the fact that we're seeing it and it's happening, and that's why ransomware is still prevalent because it's like investing into them developing more ransomware. So it's a circle, right? People get ransom, they pay the ransomware is invested back into the ransomware business, they develop more sophisticated ransomware, and then they come back again to what? Deploy more ransomware to the network. Now imagine if people that get ransom don't pay this ransom. And the thing with cyber criminals, they're very impatient um, with the kind of attack they do. So if I'm attacking you to gain money from you, and all of a sudden I'm not gaining that, I'm just investing, I'm buying my way, I'm deploying that, nobody's paying me the ransom. I'll move on to something else. And that's the way it is. So the fact that this is because, and that's why it's always very effective because you are working with data, right? Every organization work with data, financial record, uh, uh, health record, documentation, policies, budget, so many data. It's a lot of stress if you're unable to access the data and you don't even have a backup. That's why people are pressured to pay. So, and we in the cybersecurity industry, we understand that but what we try to encourage mostly is for organizations to be vast and well prepared against ransomware. It's best to avoid it than to be a victim because in being a victim, it's really painful. You've seen different incidents that has happened across the globe. Even recently, I think in Montreal or so, in Manitoba, we should ensure to avoid being a victim. That should be the priority. Because once you pay, you're investing back into the cyber criminal business and then they develop more malware and come back again. So it's just going to keep happening. But if we all agree as an organization to avoid being a victim, and even being a victim, we've done our best practice to have enough data backed up so that we can recover from, and we don't pay this ransom. Ransomware attack will reduce drastically. because no criminal is into the act of spending effort developing malwares for something that won't work. So that's just to give us a better understanding and perspective of how we should see this and how we should be very proactive in not to become a victim. So the impact of ransomware attack, like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of damage to the organization. But this is one major thing I like to bring out in most of my classes, is to ensure that we understand that this attack can affect emotion. Oftentimes people don't talk about emotional imbalance, but the honest truth, the organization that have gone through this, the first thing, everybody is on their toes, especially IT, security team, the management, the board, because you need to be sure to first identify what has been compromised, to be sure how to address the media, and how to, manage your customer, how to ensure to remain relevant in spite of the attack. So there's so many emotions going up and about when this happened. And it's one of the very critical malware that brings everybody to their toes, because why? It's instant. Once it's encrypted, you can't, except you have the private key, nothing you can do to decrypt that data. Yes, there's some malware that does reverse engineering and everything, but that's if the thing data has been cached, or so many things have already been happening on the system before the malware. Not that after the malware has happened, then you're now installing that program to help you recover your data. No. So those are the things. And the second one is, of course, reputational loss. We saw what happened to the CEO of that company in the demo, and immediately he has to step down. He had to step down rather. A loss of customer confidence is also very, very is one of the greatest impact to every organization. Customer, like I mentioned, they trust you with their data. And once it's been exposed, it's similar thing that happened to malware that attacked Target some years ago. People's credit card information was stolen, and then criminals started using the credit card to do card not present transaction. And that's, affected Target. Target is a hypermarket that's, just like we have like Costco's and the likes. They got attacked, and it was a major issue for them. Even customers that their data were not stolen, they claimed that the data was stolen because they've always been a customer of Target, even though their card credit detail were not stolen, but they also came out to claim, that their credit card was stolen so that they can also get the benefit. So it's that ridiculous. Then loss of market value or market share is also part of the impact, financial losses, and so on and so forth. The list is endless, and of course you're going to be able to read on that. So let's quickly jump into the safeguards, which is the control now to protect ourselves against ransomware attack or any malware generally. And I'm going to go across it with the baseline of information security, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And that is driven through people, process, and technology, right? And of course, finance as well, because it needs finance to invest in technology, to train people, to hire the right resources, and of course, um, to be able to safeguard the organization. But generally, we're going to look at people, process, and technology. The first thing here is you have to define a policy, because something needs to guide everyone on what to do and what not to do, right? Then having defined the security policy, ensure that security awareness is done in the organization. Security awareness across everyone, both your staff, both your auxiliary staff, maybe the cleaners and the people that, support maybe mechanical persons within the organization that are not like the full staff. There could be an ancillary staff. Ensure everybody's aware of information security, what to do and what not to do, and also often test them, with the awareness as well. The different platforms that you can use to simulate phishing email and see how many people that will click on it in your organization. With that, it can help you measure the level of awareness of individuals in your organization, how quickly they have to click a phishing email and how quickly they have to report it when they see it. So how quickly can they identify a ransomware? Define roles and responsibility. Everybody should have a clear understanding of their function in an organization. Segregate duties. In finance, we talk about imputer, people that impute the transaction or debit or credit, whatever it is, and a different person that authorized. They could be in the same department, but there's a segregation of duty. Someone impute, someone authorized. The reason is because we don't want a situation where someone that imputes also authorized. The person could also later in the future be a criminal or a fraudster. So if I can impute money into the system and I can authorize, that means I can create money, you know, and nobody will probably notice in the organization. So this is just a simple example of how to define segregation of duty. There should be that control in place such that people are not given too much privilege that could, if they are compromised or if they become a compromising entity, affect our organization. Then disciplinary action, this can be taken in different ways based on how and the kind of organization you operated and the level of risks you're exposed to or the level of sensitive information that you deal with. Then processes. This is very important. Develop and implement a roadmap, a security roadmap for your organization. This will help help to first identify the level you are towards meeting a goal. So you could do an assessment of your organization to see the level you are against the baseline in the industry and depending on the kind of industry you belong to. So a strategy will first assess your organization against a best practice or higher standard, security standard, and then come up with an output of the level you are, and then project you and give you a plan of how to achieve the appropriate level or the barest minimum level that you can be to be fully secured, even though there's no 100% security, right? But at least the 99.9% is also very effective. So it's important to measure yourself, where you are, where you're going, and then plan towards building the strategy to achieve that. Then, of course, achieving standard based on your industry is very important. Regulators, Frank, they take this very serious. Also ensure that your third party adhere to these standards as well. Don't just engage any third party to just be part of your organization for any reason. Ensure they measure them, you review them, then they do your due diligence to be sure they are not compromised. Because your organization can be actually secured, but if you have a third party that is not secured, they could expose you. Even the hacker can attack the third party and from their network gain access to your network, depending on how your network is being structured. You know, then do pen test or vulnerability assessment regularly. Establish a change management process, code review if you're in a software development organization. Ensure that you review your codes, be sure that they are secure, they are using the latest program and the most secure configuration that have been put in place. Security event logs are also very important because in the enterprise, all systems should log into a central repository. We call it a SIEM, which is a very massive platform that all logs from your database, your servers, your users, and then there should be an individual that does a review to be able to see if there are anything like an indicator of compromise or people that are violating policies, or people that are trying to hack into your system. Maybe someone is trying to check, has been trying the MD's password or the CFO's password multiple times. You will see that event in your logs. Then user access review, such that when people leave the organization, you ensure that they follow the due process of exits, their credentials are revoked, access is revoked, and the likes. Then secure backups is very important. If you do not back up your data, if you're ransom, you can't recover, right? The best you can leverage on is your backup data. So how you back up your data is important. Some use a code backup such a way that the backup outside the network and keep their data there, either in the cloud or in the facility, so that if there's an incident or can they maintain the backup regularly, they can easily fall back to their most recent backup and recover, therefore not paying the ransom. Encryption is also important. For example, the video we saw that the credit card information as well as the social security number were all stored in the database in clear text. So even if they had encrypted those data and they got ransom, the data that was stolen would have been encrypted and be useless to the criminals, right? But unfortunately, they were all stored in clear text, and that's why the criminal was able to steal them and make use of them. But if they were saving them in an encrypted format, in the database, or they put a control in place such as only a specific people that can read the data, it'll like be useless to the cyber criminals. Then cloud security adding is important, or regularly patch your system. There are some ransomware that won't come in through phishing, they come in through hacking, and then they are deployed into the network. if there's a vulnerability in your system that allows hacker to gain access into your system. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses on the system. When you don't patch your system regularly, when you're installing illegal programs or vulnerable programs, or you're installing any program that will enable remote desktop from anywhere, by anyone, those are issues that could cause a compromise. So it's very important to harden the network. And zero trust, my colleague already spoke about that in previous class. You can go back to the video to have a better understanding of how zero trust is set up. And it's very important in the age and time we are now. Baseline of zero trust is just to treat every connection as is basically verifying. So it's not just going to verify you and give you access all through. Every time you need to connect again. It's going to re-verify to be sure you're still the right person that needs connection to the network. And it's very, very effective. And has helped reduce both internal threat and external threat as well. The network segmentation is also important. How you segment your network within sensitive systems, keeping sensitive information, and even third party, is also important so that everyone don't just gain access to the network and gain access to data. Because like the next scenario, like a malware, like worm, if you gain access to a network that is not properly segmented, it will propagate itself very well. And depending on the nature of the malware, it could cause a denial of service, it could shut down the whole system and make a downtime, or you could even propagate the cell like a ransomware and cause commotion on the system. All right. This is just some of the few things. I'm just trying to rush up because of time, and you can also take your time to read through them once you have the slide. And authentication is also important, multi-factor authentication. If a criminal get access to a system, that will require them to multi-factor, like this, yeah, authenticating more than using one factor. We have the three common way of authentication, which is the password, your password, which is something which is offered, something you have, which could be your token, like something you have in your hand or your soft token on your phone, and something you are, which is part of your being, like your biometric. So using a minimum of 2 or 3 of those factors, what we call multi-factor, not just using one factor, which is like a password, is also very important to be implemented. Data leakage prevention will also help curb what can be exfiltrated of your network. A malware solution like Defender for Endpoint and the likes are also very important. Data classification also is a control in place that helps you identify sensitive information within your enterprise and how you can protect them and how they should be treated as well. And of course, establish a security operating center, which is a SOC, or subscribe to a managed service like us. We have a service called Alarm Guardian, which helps to monitor your enterprise for different threats as well as user access and also policies that you've left within the organization. You can read more about it in the slide as well. I'm just trying to rush because of time. And of course, you can also subscribe to the Microsoft Security Workshop where we can detail different, we have different modules. There's securing identity and access, Defender for Trade, which is one of the very effective workshop that can help you understand what Microsoft capability is in addressing threat like this kind of ransomware and the likes, and so many other offerings from Microsoft that will help, give you a better understanding of how to protect your enterprise and how to build that cybersecurity strategy that you want for your organization as well. All right, so in conclusion, just like I said earlier, when I showed you the logos of different things that we see every day, but we never knew that they added a message, the same thing phishing mails are. Phishing mails can appear like a legitimate email. It just takes you to be very careful to review. Anytime you see a mail that presents itself, that gives you fear, remember FUD, fear, urgency, or uncertainty, and doubt. You should be wary of such email and take your time to review before clicking or opening the attachment. And again, security is everyone's responsibility. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer them. Over to you, Catherine.
Oh, thank you, Simi. That was awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Our follow-up email will include the webinar recording, the presentation deck, and links for next steps. And again, I put the Alarm Guardian and the Microsoft workshops into the chat if you want to check that out. And you can always reach us at cloud@proserveit.com. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for an amazing class, Simi.
It's a pleasure.